The trucker had told plenty of stories over the years, breakdowns on frozen highways, close calls with drifting 18-wheelers, strange lights over desert roads, but nothing like this. This time, when he leaned across the diner booth and lowered his voice, there was no grin, no playful glint in his eye. Just a quiet seriousness, as if he carried a weight he'd been holding for decades. He said he had kept it buried for most of his life. Not because he was afraid people wouldn't believe him, truckers swap unbelievable stories all the time, but because he worried someone might try to find the creature he once knew, and hurt it. Or worse, capture it. He said he'd never forgive himself if that happened. But the older he got, the more he felt he owed the truth to someone, even if that someone was a stranger who happened to buy the next round of coffee. He said it started in the early 1980s, when he was just a skinny, quiet kid growing up on the edge of a thick, sprawling forest in northern Washington. His family lived far enough from town that most days the only sounds were wind through the pines and the distant call of birds. He didn't have many friends, and back then, the woods became his world, a place where imagination didn't feel childish and nothing around him had sharp edges. The forest felt alive, comforting even, and he liked to explore after school, following deer trails and creek beds until the shadows grew long. One autumn afternoon, when he was around 9 years old, he wandered farther than usual. He remembered the light filtering golden through the trees, the air crisp enough to see his breath. He had been following a peculiar sound, almost like someone humming deep in their chest, soft and rhythmic. He thought maybe it was an elk. He crept closer through the ferns until he reached a small clearing. That was when he saw it. At first he thought it was a massive, shaggy bear standing upright. But then it moved, slowly, deliberately, not startled by him, not aggressive. It was tall, easily 7 or 8 feet, with long arms and a heavy, barrel-like chest. Its fur wasn't just brown but streaked with deep copper tones that caught the sun. It turned its head toward him, and the boy froze. The creature didn't roar or charge. Instead, it tilted its head slightly, the way a curious dog might. Its eyes, the trucker said, were what he remembered most clearly, dark, yes, but gentle. Observant, human in a way he never expected. He stood there trembling, unsure if he should run, but something about the creature's calm posture kept him rooted in place. Then it did something he never forgot. It lifted one enormous hand and tapped its chest, as if trying to show he meant no harm. The boy didn't move. They stood like that for several long, breathless seconds before the creature slowly stepped backward into the trees and vanished without a sound. He sprinted home, terrified and exhilarated. But he didn't tell a soul. He wasn't sure anyone would believe him, and besides, the creature hadn't frightened him, just shocked him. Something about it felt lonely. Over the next few weeks, he found small signs in the woods. A cluster of stones arranged in a perfect circle. Tree branches bent into strange shapes, almost like symbols. Once, he found fresh salmon placed carefully on a mossy log, even though the nearest river was miles away. He didn't understand the meaning at first, but something told him these were intentional. Messages. Or invitations. The real encounter happened on a foggy Saturday morning. He'd gone exploring like usual, kicking through fallen leaves, enjoying the smell of damp earth. He reached the same clearing and noticed something odd. An old, weathered tree stump that hadn't been there before. Or so he thought. When he got closer, he realized it wasn't a stump at all. It was the creature, crouched low to the ground, waiting. He should have run. Any normal kid would have run. But he didn't. Something pulled him forward, like he already understood the creature wasn't a threat. The creature lifted a hand slowly and tapped its chest again. This time, the boy tapped his own chest in return. That seemed to change everything. The creature let out a deep, rumbling sound, not scary, but warm, almost pleased, and stood to its full height. From a few feet away, the boy could see details he'd missed before, the fur thick around the shoulders like a winter coat, the broad hands with long fingers, the leathery skin around the eyes. And those eyes, filled with an intelligence he had no words for. Then, in the softest movement, the creature placed one enormous hand over its face and ducked behind a tree. Hide and seek. The boy stared for a moment, uncertain. But when the creature peeked from behind the tree, a playful spark in its expression, he laughed. So he closed his eyes, counted loudly to 10, and began to search. It became their secret game. Every few days after school, he'd leave his backpack by a fallen log and step into the woods. Sometimes the creature, who he secretly called Old Mossback, because of the greenish tint in his fur, was already waiting. Other times the boy would wander for a bit before hearing that familiar low hum guiding him. They would play hide and seek among the towering pines and mossy boulders. Mossback was surprisingly quiet for his size, but he wasn't good at hiding from a kid who spent half his life climbing trees and crawling through brush. Still, the creature let him win. And every time the boy pointed triumphantly at his hiding spot, Mossback would make a low chuffing sound. Laughter, the boy thought. He never touched the creature, and Mossback never tried to touch him. There was always a respectful distance, a silent understanding. But the creature did teach him things. Sometimes it would pick up a stick and draw shapes in the dirt, circles, lines, spirals. The boy didn't know what they meant, but the creature would tap them and then tap the sky, or the trees, as if trying to show him some connection. Other times Mossback would pick up a stone and gently place it in the boy's hand, almost ceremonial. The boy kept those stones hidden under his mattress for years. He said the creature wasn't a brute or a monster. It was more like an old guardian of the forest, a being that existed long before people built fences or roads. Lonely, perhaps, observing, wanting connection but careful not to frighten. And for a brief moment in time, the creature found a friend in a quiet boy who wandered too far from home. He said everything changed the day he heard gunshots. It was late fall, hunters from town had been seen in the woods, and rumors of something big roaming around had already begun to make the rounds at the local feed store. The boy rushed toward the clearing, calling softly for Mossback, but there was no answer. No shapes in the trees. No low humming, nothing but the echo of distant gunfire. When he finally found Mossback's trail, a series of deep footprints pressed into mud, it led to the base of a large cedar. Mossback was there, hiding high among the branches, barely visible through the foliage. The creature's eyes met his, and for the first time, the boy saw fear in them. Mossback made a gentle shooing gesture, urging him to leave. To go home. It was the last time he ever saw him. He searched for weeks, even months. But winter came early that year, covering everything in snow, and any trace of Mossback disappeared with it. He said he felt the loss like losing a best friend, though he never spoke of it to anyone. Eventually life moved on. He grew up, became a trucker, started a family. But the memory stayed vivid, untouched by time. When he finished telling his story in that quiet diner booth, the trucker didn't ask if I believed him. He just sat back, staring into his coffee as if watching old memories surface. He said he wasn't looking for attention, and he definitely didn't want people to go searching for Bigfoot with cameras and rifles. He said people misunderstand what they fear, and they fear what they don't know. He told me he believed Mossback was no monster at all, just a living being who felt alone, just like he had at that age. A creature longing for connection in a world that rarely offers kindness. He said he hoped Mossback was still out there somewhere, hidden deep in the forests where people seldom wander. Maybe still drawing circles in the dirt. Maybe still humming that low, comforting tune. And maybe, just maybe, still waiting for a friend to come find him.